Andor isn't just a gritty Star Wars spin-off, it's the story that quietly redefines everything we thought we knew about the rebellion.
I'm damned for what I do.
Season 1 lit the fuse, and now with Season 2 just around the corner, we're about to watch the spark become a fire that sets the entire galaxy in motion.
If it goes up in flames, it will burn very brightly.
This isn't just leading into Rogue One, it's the prequel to the prequel. A direct line from Luthen and Mon Mothma's secret missions to the moment Leia receives the Death Star plans aboard the Tantive IV. By the time this story ends, we'll be standing just days away from A New Hope.
It's a weapon. They're building a weapon.
Before we jump in, don't forget to leave a thumbs up on today's video and subscribe to the channel if you haven't already. If you want to catch more Star Wars videos like this, then you're in the right place. Now, with all that out of the way, let's dive into how Andor reshapes the legacy of the original trilogy and why, of all the Star Wars stories Disney's told, this might be the one that matters most.
Welcome to the rebellion.
Alright, now Season 1 of Andor didn't just give us a good Star Wars story, it rewired what a Star Wars story could even look like. Gone were the Chosen Ones and the Force-driven destinies, instead what we got was fear, tension, and a quiet rebellion brewing beneath the surface. It wasn't all about heroes, it was about survival, and it showed us what the Empire looked like when you were stuck living under its boot, not flying above it in an X-Wing. At the heart of it was Luthen, a man so committed to the fight, he gave up everything just to light a match he might never get to see burn. And then there's Cassian, a reluctant thief turned revolutionary. His arc wasn't just about finding a cause, it was about finally choosing who he wanted to become in a galaxy that never gave him a choice. But this isn't just a character piece, it's the first real crack in the Empire's armour.
The ISB will be taking the lead going forward.
You see, Andor isn't just a prequel filling in backstory, it's a foundational story, one that shows us how the Rebel Alliance formed into the Force we meet in A New Hope. And so yeah, this is the closest Star Wars has actually ever come in live action to bridging the gap between eras. Think back to the very first scene of A New Hope, the Tantive IV under siege, Leia receiving the Death Star plans. The rebellion already in motion. Andor Season 2 is what gets us there. This isn't just a spark anymore, it's the ignition point, a war that's been simmering in the shadows finally stepping into the light. And we're about to see how that first domino falls. Anyway, Season 2 spans 4 years, so that's 4 years of escalating tension, shifting alliances, and covert missions that push us right to the doorstep of Rogue One. It's during this time that isolated uprisings start linking together and forming a proper network, a tactical insurgency, and honestly, this might be the most important story Disney's told since they took over Star Wars back in 2012. It's not just another Star Wars series, it's a story that makes the originals feel even more meaningful. It deepens the sacrifice, it sharpens the stakes, it shows us just how much blood, compromise, and grit it took to even make it to the opening crawl. Anyways, when you make it past the opening crawl, the rebellion we meet in A New Hope is organised, strategic, and ready to strike, a far cry from where we met him in Season 1. Back then it was still fractured, just flickers of resistance scattered across the galaxy, angry citizens, isolated cells, a little bit like your neighbourhood when you hear the bin men are going on strike. But yeah, it was essentially just people doing what little they could to push back in their own corners of the Empire's shadow.
There is a darkness reaching like rust into everything around us.
But now in Season 2, those flickers start to form a signal fire. This is where the movement begins to take shape, where the quiet whispers of rebellion start linking into something louder, something with structure. Mon Mothma's political manoeuvring, Saw Gerrera's brutal tactics, Luthen's morally grey sabotage. It's messy, conflicted, and far from united, but that's exactly what makes it feel real. These aren't flawless heroes, they're desperate people with different methods, but ultimately the same goal. And yeah, that tension is the growing pain of something bigger being born. And there's good old Cassian. In Season 1, he was just trying to stay alive. No loyalty, no cause. But now, the cracks are showing, and you can see the shift. The way he carries what happened in Ferrix, the way he listens, even when he acts like he doesn't care. Season 2 is going to be a turning point. This is the Cassian that will one day walk into Scarif, knowing he probably won't walk back out. The reluctant thief is about to become the rebel spy. But while the rebellion starts finding its shape, the Empire is preparing to crush it fast. We know Director Krennic is out there working behind the curtain on a weapon that will change the galaxy forever. Every new act of defiance only accelerates that mission. The Death Star is no longer a distant threat, it's becoming real, and Andor Season 2 puts us right on the edge of that storm. We already know Mon Mothma and Saw Gerrera will return, but this time their choices matter more. We've seen where their paths lead in Rogue One.
Save the dream!
This is where those paths begin to splinter, where the weight of rebellion starts pressing down, and where personal sacrifice becomes inevitable. But the biggest change in this story might come from the faces we haven't seen yet, and that's something we need to talk about. Right, so here's a cool thought to chew over. We already know Krennic's returning, but what if he's just the tip of the iceberg? Because the deeper we get into Andor, the closer we get to Rogue One, it's harder to ignore the big players circling above. Let's start with Tarkin. Now, this is where things get interesting because he wasn't just another Imperial bureaucrat. Tarkin was one of the architects of the Empire's most brutal doctrine. In Rogue One, he literally steals the Death Star project out from under Krennic's nose.
Am I far when ready?
And if we're setting Krennic up in Season 2, it makes total sense that we'd see the early cracks in that power struggle. The subtle maneuvers, the quiet positioning. Tarkin plays the long game while Krennic struggles to maintain control. And then there's Narkina 5. Cassian was building parts for the Death Star without even realising it. You think Tarkin didn't have a hand in that? He'd absolutely be involved in keeping that kind of operation buried. But here's the real kicker. Season 2 is set to adapt the Gorman Massacre, one of the darkest moments in Star Wars history. In Legends, it was Tarkin who ordered the atrocity, literally crushing civilians beneath a ship just to make an example. And in canon, this is the moment that finally pushes Mon Mothma to break away from the Senate and go all in on the rebellion. If that moment plays out, there's no way Tarkin's not involved. His fingerprints would be all over it, and we need to consider, as the rebellion becomes more organised, more dangerous, the threat it poses starts rising through the Imperial chain of command.
My lord, Director Krennic has arrived.
So yeah, let's talk about Vader and the Emperor. Now I get it, Andor has always been the most grounded Star Wars story we've ever seen. No lightsabers, no chosen ones, just real people living under the crushing weight of the Empire. But by the end of Season 2, we're practically at the doorstep of Rogue One and the original trilogy, and at that point, the rebellion isn't just background noise anymore, it's a full-blown problem. And when something becomes that big of a threat, it reaches the very top. Is it likely we'll see Vader or Palpatine? Honestly, probably not. Is it impossible? Definitely not. Even if it's just a brief hologram or a shadowed conversation or another post-credit sting like the Death Star reveal from Season 1, in a way, it would make sense. A reminder of how far this war is starting to spread and who's watching from above. Would you be down to see something like that? Anyways, the timeline is tightening, and the noose is slowly closing, which brings us back to Cassian. We already know where his story ends, on Scarif, giving everything to the rebellion. But what we don't know is what takes him there, what hardens him, breaks him, what makes him believe enough in this fight to die for it. And that's what makes every mission in Season 2 matter. Every choice, every scar, every loss. And if this is how the rebellion begins, then who's watching from the shadows, ready to crush it before it starts? So yeah, Cassian's mission has never been a straight line. He didn't get swept up in some big speech or rallying cry. He got dragged into this. Betrayal, survival, desperation. It was all about making it to the next day.
It's better to leave, better to eat, sleep, do what you want.
But slowly, painfully, that begins to change. The man who once just wanted to stay out of trouble is slowly becoming the man who will risk it all to steal the Death Star plans. Anyways, this is where we start to feel the full weight of the rebellion, not in grand space battles or heroic speeches, I mean, they are great though, but in the people who don't make it. The names no one remembers, the lives lost along the way, and all the hard calls that don't really feel heroic at all. Andor doesn't just paint the rebellion in gold, it shows us the rust underneath, and in doing that, it makes everything that comes after feel more powerful. Because when we see Cassian in Rogue One, we're not just watching a soldier on a mission, we're seeing a man who crawled his way through doubt, guilt and grief to stand for something bigger than himself. And then there's Luthen, the spark that lit the match. He's not a general, he's not a figurehead, he's the shadow behind the curtain, pulling the strings and connecting the dots, building a rebellion out of people who don't even know they're fighting the same war. But here's the thing, he knows his time is limited, the rebellion is growing beyond him, and I think he knows exactly what that means.
I burn my life to make a sunrise that I know I'll never see.
He's not in it to see the end, he's in it to make sure there is one, and that's what makes Andor so different. It's not really about prophecy, it's about sacrifice. It's the Star Wars story where hope is earned the hard way, where broken people do whatever it takes to light a fire, knowing they probably won't be around to see it burn. You see everything we're witnessing in Andor, all the tension, all the sacrifice, all the blood in the dirt. It's not just shaping Cassian's story, it's reshaping the whole galaxy. Because what Luthen, Mon Mothma and the rest are doing here, it sets everything in motion, not just Rogue One, but the rebellion we come to know across the original trilogy, Yavin, Endor, even Leia standing at the heart of it all. It all starts here. And that's what makes this story hit so much harder than most Star Wars projects. It's about people sacrificing everything just so someone else can come in and pick up the fight. And this brings us to Leia. We don't usually think of the link between her and Mon Mothma, but Andor is quietly building that bridge. The rebellion Leia walks into, ready to lead, it only exists because of everything Mon risks in this series.
You think I haven't thought this through? I'd be the first one to fall.
The networks Luthen forges in the shadows, and because of Cassian and people like him doing the jobs no one talks about, Leia might be the one leading the charge in A New Hope, but she's standing on the shoulders of ghosts. And with Andor Season 2 leading us into the Gorman Massacre, Mon Mothma's turning point, we could be on the verge of something truly massive. That's the moment she stops pretending she can fix the Empire from within, and there's one person who would absolutely be by her side when she makes that break, Bail Organa. There's every chance we get at least a glimpse of him in Season 2, a quiet message, a brief cameo, maybe even in a scene on Alderaan itself, just a small, haunting reminder of what's to come. Because those early seeds of rebellion, they're being planted on a planet we know won't survive, and that kind of foreshadowing is exactly the sort of thing Andor does best. This isn't just a prequel, it's a blueprint. It shows what the cost is to get to hope, and how close everything came to falling apart before it ever came together. So when you look at it all together, Andor Season 1, Season 2, Rogue One, what you're actually looking at is one of the most vital stories Disney's ever told in the Star Wars universe. It's not flashy, it's not packed with Jedi or giant space battles every episode, but it's the backbone, it's the groundwork, it's the spark that leads to everything.
We will never have a better chance than this.
And honestly, I'd go as far to say there's a good chance we'll look back at this in 10 years and say this is the best Star Wars trilogy we've had under Disney. And yeah, I said trilogy because when you line it all up together, Season 1, 2, Rogue One, what you're actually looking at is a beginning and a middle and an end, a complete trilogy in itself. And for some people, this could even surpass the prequels, it's that good. The closer we get to Season 2, the more hyped I am. Every new detail, every tease, it just makes it feel like we're about to witness something huge. Something that not only enriches the originals, but reframes how we understand the entire rebellion.
Everything I did for the rebellion.
If you love Star Wars, like really love it, then I really think this is the story you can't afford to miss. Anyways, what character, if any, do you think is going to show up that further connects it to Rogue One and A New Hope? As always, drop your thoughts, theories, and wildest speculations down in the comments. If you enjoyed this video, be sure to check out our last one on how Luthen is the real hero of the rebellion. Don't forget to leave a thumbs up and make sure to subscribe so you don't miss any of our upcoming videos. Thanks for watching, I'll see you in the next one, and may the Force be with you.